11 o'clock on your Wednesday morning. Welcome in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler Head, Wes Mitchell, Chris Clark will join us here. Coming up in a couple minutes on a cold, snowy, icy morning. I can't see outside, but the latest report I got is still snow on the ground. Hopefully the drive-in wasn't too bad, Wes.
No, we're good. Ready to roll.
Very cool, very cool. Well, going to dive into plenty of football stuff as the hour goes along, but today we're going to start things off by talking a little bit of Gamecock softball. We are just over 2 weeks away from the softball team getting their season started with the Gamecock Invitational. Joining us now on the Love Chevrolet phone lines, head coach Ashley Chastain-Woodard. Coach, first of all, thank you so much for taking your time this morning. Like I just said, a little over 2 weeks away. What's the excitement level for finally getting the season rolling?
Well, good morning. Thank you so much for having me on. Yeah, I mean, we are just pumped and thrilled. I can't believe we're 2 weeks away. So a little setback with this winter wonderland, but I guess that's, just kind of how it is on the early days of baseball, softball season. I feel like, the weather tends to all of a sudden turn very cold when we start talking about playing our first games. But we're excited. We've been practicing for a few weeks now and just ready to kick the season off 2 weeks from tomorrow.
Hey, Coach, it's Wes. Like Tyler said, appreciate you doing this. Appreciate you taking the time. Would you like to, while we have you, tell everybody about how they can get involved? I know there's a lot of exciting things going on as y'all try to kind of build up the fan base and let the people know about everything y'all have going on. The Diamond Club, I understand, has launched recently. I know you have a season opening celebration that folks can sign up for online as well. Do you want to just maybe give the fans out there a little idea of what's going on with all that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've got a ton of new things going on with the program. And back in December, we launched the Diamond Club, and that is the first ever booster club specifically for softball for those, that just want to support just the softball program or directly to the program. It's been awesome, the response the last month. We've got a ton of support and, really appreciate all of those that have already joined and, just welcome anyone for any information about it. It is online. You can go online. There's a link on our website right at the top if you click on softball. It has, our schedule, our roster, our soon-to-be statistics that will be live and updating. And then the next one over is the Diamond Club. And you can get in touch with the Gamecock Club. It's run through the Gamecock Club. So Stuart Lake or, anyone with the with the Gamecock Club can help. Or you can reach out to our staff directly and we can just guide you in the right direction. But that is the way that you get reserve seats. So if you want reserve seats in our stadium for the spring, that is the way to do it. And then we've got a huge event Saturday night, our season opening celebration dinner. Doors open at 5 and the dinner begins at 6. You'll hear from everyone on the team. You'll hear from me. We've got some really cool guests that'll be in the room. And that is just a really cool way to get to know the team and honestly just celebrate the season starting in a couple weeks. If you're a Diamond Club member, you get a discount on tickets for Saturday night. But if you just want to attend the event, then the link is also online where you can just get tickets without being a Diamond Club member.
And Coach, I'm sure plenty of people will be coming to that, getting excited for the season. You're obviously very familiar with this community, having played here before. Coming back as a coach and leading up to the season, what's it been like for you, kind of getting re-ingrained and reacclimated to this community once again?
Yeah, it's just been awesome, and just the support and the overall love that I've felt since last summer through the fall, and now that we're just a few weeks away from opening day, it's been awesome. I mean, there's so many people that I knew when I played that are in the community that have just been, lifelong diehard Gamecock fans that I've reconnected with. I get a ton of emails and just messages from people that, just knew me as a player and, are now back following the program, which is really cool. And then I've met a ton of new people that I never encountered when I played here years ago. So it's been awesome just kind of reconnecting with the community. And, we have the best fan base in the country. People here in Columbia and even in the whole state of South Carolina are just really excited about Gamecock sports across the board. So I think it's really cool that we have so many people that are wanting to support softball and really getting excited about it. So it's been great. I just love reconnecting with all those people.
Coach, when we had you in studio, we talked a good bit about just kind of instilling your culture and what it, kind of what you wanted the standard to be for the program. As y'all have gotten back on the field and you've kind of, I'm sure, tried to let all your newcomers, be it transfers or high school or girls that kind of entrusted you to stay at South Carolina and come back, how do you feel like this team has maybe come together when you're talking about girls from all different ways of life and parts of the country and all that? Do you feel like your kind of dugout culture has started to build to where you want it to be?
Oh, absolutely. I think that was very much what we created through the fall, through the fall games and the fall season, the fall practices. It was just about bringing everyone together and them learning how to be a team, because we had so many new people, some people that knew each other previously, people that had been here at different schools. And, so it kind of just melted all of that together and just tried to create the cohesion that you need to be successful on the field. So I think these past couple of weeks, we're in week 3 of preseason right now, and I think you can just feel that it's starting to connect. They're communicating better. You can tell their relationships are stronger. We're performing at a higher level on the field every day at practice. So I think we're right where we need to be. And the thing about softball season is it's a really long season. We have 56 regular season games before we get into the SEC tournament and postseason. And so, we really have tried to talk to them about just the excitement of starting the season, but also we don't want to play our best on February 6th. We want to really continue to get better and learn how to play together and the chemistry and the cohesion that you need throughout the spring. So that way we're peaking and playing really well at the end of season. So just kind of talking through just a marathon that really the spring season is. But I've been really pleased with them. I think they're doing a lot of things really well on the field. And obviously today we'll see if we can get to the stadium. The roads and stuff are pretty icy over our way at Beckham. But, it's been awesome. We've been on the field a lot and we've been training since January 6th, even before classes start. So we've got a lot of good work in.
Again, talking to Gamecock softball coach Ashley Chastain-Woodard here on the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour. You mentioned cohesion there, and as you said, a lot of new faces here, only 5 returners from last year's team. And like you said, you're not expected to play your best softball on day number 1, but what is that acclimation period like when you have so many new faces and so many players that haven't played together when you get into the real games of getting that cohesion, getting that gelling right so you are playing your best softball by season's end?
Yeah, I think after you get that first weekend behind you, I think you can kind of see usually that, they kind of just take a deep breath and settle in. So, we play some really good opponents the first weekend, and we open up with Virginia for 2 games. We play them Thursday night on opening night and then again on Friday afternoon. So, there's really no grace period with getting into competition. That's not really how we approach the game. We instill in them that, you don't play logos, you don't play conferences. You play the game the same way every time, and you approach the game the same way every time, no matter who you're playing. So, that mentality we're instilling in them from the start. We don't want to have kind of this get into it mentality as far as, the opponents that we're playing or anything like that. But, I think all eyes are always set on the SEC play. So, I think the lessons that we'll learn through February are really important for us to start SEC play in March. We open up at Oklahoma and, then settle into a rigorous SEC schedule from there. So for me, I think it's just making sure that they learn the lessons needed through February and through our tournament games. So that way they're feeling really good about what we're doing going into conference play. But we've got a ton of great leadership, and we established our 3 captains, Brooke Blankenship, Ella Chansey, and Sam Gress, at the end of the fall. And so, you'll just see those guys leading the team a lot. This is their team, and we've got a ton of leadership even outside of our captains, which has been really cool to see, because we do have a lot of experience on the field, a lot of people that have played the game at other places. So we've got a lot of experience on the field, and then we've got a lot of youth that'll be coming in and out of the game, I think, a lot, which is, when you can get your youth experience early on in their career, I think that's invaluable for the growth of the program later on. So, just really excited to kind of put it all together and get going. After we get through the first weekend, I think their excitement and their nerves and, all the things that kind of build up to start season fade away, and then they really settle into playing, the rest of the year.
Coach, we were able to spend some time in here with Ari Rhodey when she first arrived on campus. I know has to be a great feeling, knowing what she did at Charlotte, to plug her into the middle of the lineup here as well. What does her bat just provide in terms of both their production, but also maybe what it does for the entire lineup, knowing that she's right there in the middle of it?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it gives us a lot of power and a lot of confidence. The thing with Ari is she can change the game in one swing, and when you have that kind of natural talent and ability and strength, it's really exciting to be able to plug that into the middle of your order. We're trying not to put the offense on her shoulders, because I think 1 through 9, and even the people that will be coming in and subbing into our lineup, it's all really important. Ari is a huge piece of our production, and but making sure we have people in scoring position when she's at the plate, making sure that, we have people there to support her around her in the offense is all really important. I love Ari's mentality. I think that we've been just really working with her on, not feeling the pressure of repeating her sophomore campaign, but, just being in a good routine, a good mental space to compete at this level as a junior. Just trying to keep her in a good space and not put too much expectation and pressure on her internally, because that's naturally going to happen from the external world. But she's been doing great in preseason, and just really trying to develop a holistic offense around her. And really a dynamic order 1 through 9 with speed and people that can be on base. In those moments where she could really change the game for us. So it's really exciting, and I'm really excited to kind of see the offense come together, because I think that's the part of the game that really you start to get to know and develop, and you get a better information. You get a lot of information on, what the offense can do as soon as season starts that, maybe you don't have as much in the preseason or just in your own inner squad. So I'm really excited to see the offense work as we get going into season.
A couple more minutes here with Gamecock softball coach Ashley Chastain-Woodard on the Love Chevrolet phone lines. You guys not included in the preseason top 25. A little additional chip on the shoulder to go out there and prove some people wrong this year?
Yeah. I mean, that stuff is, it's cool when it happens. I mean, we try not to put too much emphasis or focus on it for the team internally. It's great when it happens. We've had some individual honors. I mean, I know Rhodey's been on several watch lists. Shea Anderson was on a freshman watch list as a freshman. That's really cool. Everyone's kind of anticipation of her talent. So Sam Gress was on a pitcher watch list. So we've got some individual things, but, holistically as a team, I mean, I don't know how much I really want them to focus on any of that. I mean, it's not really going to dictate how we start the season or how we play or anything to that matter internally. So, yeah, I mean, maybe a little chip on the shoulder, but, I think once we get into season and get into conference play, I mean, that's really, our play you're going to be able to see on the field. That's really the only thing that we're focused on and matters for us.
Well, Coach, I want to thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure we'll be checking in with you as the season goes along, and good luck just 2 weeks from tomorrow against Virginia.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. Really appreciate the support.
Absolutely. Again, head softball coach for Gamecock softball, Ashley Chastain-Woodard there. And again, that first game against Virginia on February the 6th, right here at home in the Gamecock Invitational. We'll come back, continue on with the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Talk about preseason Heisman odds. Yes, they're already out. Is Lenora Sellers on the list? We'll discuss that coming up next here on The Game.
All right, guys. Obviously, chilly out there today, all week long, actually. Hopefully, you're not dealing with any issues with your heating. But if you are, hit up our friends at Krantz Cooling and Heating. That's Krantz with a K, Cooling with a K. Phone number 803-672-3224. Or you can head on over to their website, krantzcooling.com. Again, hopefully you're not having issues. But if you are, they're going to help you out. And, of course, once this cold front gets on out of here, that would be a great time to go ahead and get some peace of mind in terms of your heating or, of course, looking ahead to your HVAC systems in terms of keeping things cool in the summer. They have the Krantz Club maintenance plans that you can sign up for and gain that peace of mind, knowing that your home heating and cooling system will receive regular professional attention from the Krantz Cooling and Heating team. Can't tell you enough about the great job they do. If you go to krantzcooling.com, you can schedule an appointment today or just call them 803-672-3224.
Well, welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyrad, Wes Mitchell, and Chris Clark along with you here on your Wednesday. Again, thanks so much to Coach Chastain-Woodard for joining us there in that first segment. We'll be talking to her plenty throughout the Gamecock softball season and see how year number one fares for her team. Again, starting here in a couple weeks as they take on Virginia in the Gamecock Invitational. But, of course, we've now entered the long and cold off season of college football, which means we can go ahead and start projecting forward to things we think might happen in 2025. FanDuel yesterday put out their way too early Heisman Trophy odds, and Lenora Sellers tied for 7th on the odds list with expected Ohio State starting quarterback Julian Sayin at plus 1,800 going into the season.
Yeah, I don't think we're surprised by this at all. Yeah, there was a little bit of late, not that he had a shot to win the thing this past season, but you actually started to hear a little bit of Sellers buzz for the Heisman in terms of, should he have some votes? Should he be in the mix? Late this past season, of course, Beamer said at the end of the Clemson game on the field, he's the best player in the country. And, you knew he didn't have a shot to win it this season, but that kind of, as we know, these things kind of start at the end of the previous season in terms of the buzz you're able to generate. And so these odds, I think, make a lot of sense. As always, it will shift a ton. It will shift a ton once the games actually start. But as we've seen, as long as it continues to be proven that people will bet on this stuff, Vegas will create odds on this stuff no matter how early it may be.
Well, the goal is to try and get in early and find the diamond in the rough or whatever and hope they can ride to success. I mean, Joe Burrow's odds to win the Heisman the year he won it were minuscule, if anything. And
I don't even know if you could have got him at this point, I imagine.
Maybe not, but if you did cash in, you probably walked away pretty wealthy on that front. And Chris, like Wes said, look, this is going to be a lot of the conversation in the offseason of Sellers being thought of as one of the best returning quarterbacks in the SEC. Garrett Nussmeier and Arch Manning are actually the top 2 in Heisman odds, according to this, at plus 850 or at this point in time. So Sellers is probably going to be thought of somewhere in that 1, 2, maybe 3 range in terms of returning quarterbacks in the SEC, which automatically puts you as one of the best returning quarterbacks in college football.
Yeah, it does. And was looking over, there were some other odds that were released from a different service, we'll say, that were kind of similar, right? Because they also had Nussmeier number 1, Arch Manning number 2. And one thing, by the way, that I think just sticks out, and these are always projections, right, based on a guy's talent level, the talent around him. Very interesting that the SEC, once again, I think is going to have several really, really good quarterbacks in the conference, and many of them make this list. And a lot of also guys on this list that are going to be first-time starters, right? I mean, Arch Manning, is a guy that everybody knows about. He's played some, whether it was when Quinn Ewers was out or just situationally he played. But this will be his first year really at the reins, but yet he's number 2 on a lot of these lists. Nico from Tennessee's up there, not SEC, but Ohio State, Julian Sayin, way up there, even though this is a guy that really hasn't played. Oregon, Dante Moore taking over from Dylan Gabriel. Another one coming into the conference is John Mateer, who's following his OC from Washington State, Ben Arbuckle. It's going to be the new OC and quarterback duo for Brent Venables. You've got DJ Lagway, who I think is an outstanding player. Gunnar Stockton makes an appearance. Austin Simmons, who's now stepping into Ole Miss's offense, behind Jackson Dart, who's moving on. Marcel Reed's on this list. So, a lot of really good quarterbacks around the country and some of them that we're really going to be seeing for the first time as a starter, kind of like we were seeing Sellers. A lot of anticipation for the Sellers era in Columbia last year. And, maybe it took it really didn't take that long, right, to start seeing the returns on that hype and the reason that we all thought Sellers was going to be so good. We started seeing that, really in the LSU game, and then certainly down the stretch when South Carolina went on that 6-game streak, the iconic moments in the Clemson game. So he's certainly going to have a chance. I mean, once again, stop me if you've heard this before, Carolina's going to have an incredibly difficult schedule. There are going to be some questions, but at the same time, you get the sense that Sellers is going to once again have a chance for a really, really big year. And if the team can have success, then I think he's going to be in the conversation.
And I think it's also important to note, for some guys, especially coming off of just 1 year as a starter, getting all the hype that a guy like Sellers is going to get in the offseason, that's something that you do maybe worry about for some quarterbacks. Hey, how's he going to handle this? How's he going to process this? But again, I think Sellers lets everything roll off pretty easily. I don't think we have to worry about it going to his head by any means.
Guys, maybe this is a given that we're this far out, but I tell you, my biggest takeaway from this whole thing, though, is that this thing seems absolutely wide open. Like, if you, like, I feel like just knowing the two-way ability of Travis Hunter, even this time last year, you pretty reasonably could have said, hey, that's a guy that could win the Heisman next year. I don't know if anybody on this list I just circle, and obviously there is a Vegas favorite just by the numbers, but I don't know if I circle anybody like, hey, this guy's the favorite. I mean, Garrett Nussmeier is going to have to take a huge jump in consistency, and I'm one of the people who was sitting there saying, hey, this guy is way better than he's given credit for, and I don't think he really played up to what I thought he was capable of down the stretch. But just look at your other major contender for the Heisman from this past season, Ashton Jeanty. He rushed for 1,300 yards in 2023 at Boise, but I don't really remember there being much, if any, Heisman buzz for him this time last year. And, of course, he comes out and has one of the best seasons in college football history for a running back this year and goes screaming up those boards. So this thing could go any number of ways at this point in time. And I do think it is kind of fascinating, the guys on this list that are either just have not played much or it really, if all. I'll tell you what, though, the best player on this list right now is Jeremiah Smith. So if Jeremiah Smith has the year he is capable of, for one, that probably means some good things for Julian Sayin. But two, he to me right now as we sit here is the most established player on this list. Also, if you want some value, guys, how about DJ Lagway at plus 2,500? To me, Sellers and Lagway are actually the best two young quarterbacks in the SEC right now in terms of their upside and ability to just put up potentially video game numbers if they have the offseason that they need.
Yeah, I think it's almost gotten a little bit lost. And certainly, I mean, credit where it's due, man. I mean, I don't want to put y'all in that category. I certainly, poke fun at Florida and all sorts of stuff, but they did turn it around to have a respectable season against an incredibly difficult schedule. And, I mean, Lagway was a big part of that. And I think it's almost gone a little bit. I mean, plenty of people are talking about him. People that follow the SEC and follow college football, they know that he's really good. It's almost gotten lost a little bit. If his team were a little bit better, I think he'd be getting more hype. He is really, really good. I mean, I think he's shown some special things already and has a chance to be an outstanding player at Florida. So, again, just whether it's him, Sellers, some other guys, there's a lot of really, really good ones in the SEC. South Carolina will face some of them next year, and a lot of really good ones around the country too.
Of course, all those guys going to be chasing the Heisman Trophy. Everybody going to be chasing what Ohio State wrapped up the other night in the College Football Playoff National Championship. What exactly will the format look like in 2025? Could tweaks be made before the season arrives? We'll discuss that coming up next. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs here on your Wednesday on the Game.
All right, guys. Of course, we were supposed to be at Firehouse Subs today. We pushed that to tomorrow just because of the icy weather. Want to see you 9 a.m. to noon. We'll be hanging out over there at the Forest Drive location. Looking forward to seeing our guy Larry, checking out some of these awesome subs, and hopefully seeing you come out and see us, be it for lunch today or lunch any other time. 15 convenient locations. We've been to about all of them, all around the Midlands and growing. If you want to order now, almost lunchtime, head on over to firehouseSubs.com or, of course, like we always tell you, download the Firehouse Subs app. Not only are you going to get great food, but you're going to get points every single time you order. Then you can trade in those points for some free food, such as the new French dip with premium cut roast beef. It's on a garlic butter roll. And, of course, what makes it just puts it over the top, that au jus sauce on the side. Come check us out tomorrow, Forest Drive location of Firehouse Subs.
Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler, West, and Chris, along with you here on your Wednesday on the game. Of course, the college football season wrapping up just the other day with Ohio State winning the national championship, bringing the end to the first year of the 12-team college football playoff. And even before the playoff came to an end, we were already discussing, as many people were, potential tweaks to be made going through in 2025, the final year of the current structure of the 12-team format. And Heather Dinich wrote about this the other day on ESPN. Obviously, the powers that be with the CFP are meeting to potentially adjust things for 2025, though it does not seem like that's going to happen if, our initial reports end up being true, because everybody has to come to a unanimous decision on that. And I said this earlier, Chris, we'll start with you. If I'm one of these lower-end conferences when it comes to adjusting the seeding to where, the buys only go to conference champions and potentially going away with that and it just being teams ranked 1 through 4, I don't want to give that up. If I'm in the Mountain West, if I'm in the Big 12 or the ACC, I want the opportunity to potentially earn a bye because I know for a fact that committee's probably not going to rank me in the top 4. So getting a unanimous decision to tweak things in 2025 may not actually end up coming true.
Yeah, I read that same piece that Heather put out, Tyler, that you're referencing there. And conversations, it doesn't seem like maybe any decisions were made firmly. I don't want to – I was going to say no progress. I don't want to say that because there were discussions. But there were, according to the source that talked to Heather Dinich, talks were held, I'm quoting this, about the value of having the 4 highest-ranked conference champions earn first-round buys. And so I think that is one of the things that's come up, right? It's like, all right, if you win the Mountain West, do you really deserve a bye over another team, right? And a lot of this is going to still come down to a subjective process, right? And we've talked about this a lot. There's several different things that are going to constantly be discussed about the college football playoff format. One of them is just the amount of teams, right? We saw used to be you just had a computer pick 2 teams, then you had 4 teams be selected. There are problems with that. Then we expand out to 12. And now there's talk, well, these couple teams got left out. Let's expand it more. And I think it is a good point. We could put 30 teams in here, 32 teams, 64 teams. And just like college basketball, we would kind of be going over a fine-tooth comb and saying, all right, should this team be in? And I'm exaggerating a little bit there, of course, but there's always going to be problems because we know they're not going to expand to 30-something teams in the college football playoff. At least I don't think so. But if they go to 14, for instance, which was something that was apparently not discussed this time per this report, then teams 15, 16, 17 are going to have gripes. So it looks like for now, if there's any shorter-term tweaks, will it be to the seeding for the conference champions? And, I'm not sure we have an answer there, but it was at least discussed.
Guys, I think not that the system's ever going to be perfect by any means, but I do believe you could have a heck of a lot better tournament with just 2. Now, these are probably major tweaks, but in my opinion, are not near as major as changing the number of teams or how teams actually get in. Just by changing the seeding and not giving the auto buys to the champions, and something that I know the bowl games themselves would just push back on with everything they have. But if for some reason we can make the quarterfinals also be on campus, because the fact of the matter is, if you earn a bye, but then you still don't get to host a playoff game on your campus, like I would love to see, I'm sure there will be studies, the financial impact on a college campus of having a playoff game and all the people that come to your town for that. It should be a reward for your fans. It should be a reward for your community, your town, your city, whatever it may be, that you're able to host a college football playoff game. So I understand why, because these bowl games are holding on with everything they have, I'm sure. But the next round should be on campus. And if we had just had slightly different seeding in the first round, we would have had much more evenly matched, much more entertaining football games when it comes to this. Also, a third tweak. We got to slide this thing up in the calendar just a little bit more. Once people start thinking NFL and Super Bowl and those playoffs, I know it's not a complete carryover between the two sort of fan bases. Some people are just college guys. But I don't know about y'all, but by the time Monday got here, it just almost felt a little, I hate to say it because I love college football, it just felt a little bit like an afterthought. And so we got to have Saturday national championship, and it's got to be a week earlier or 2 weeks earlier. Let's move this thing up, and let's work with the NFL. Can you imagine having 2 wild card games and a college football national championship on a big Saturday?
Yep.
I mean, we can work together and all get our way here. The college football national championship should never, ever, ever be on any day except a Saturday.
And I completely agree with you. I'll die on that hill. And Roger Goodell did say the other day they are more open to working with college football. When it comes to scheduling, of course, the first-round games, the college football playoff went head-to-head with 2 very big games in the NFL on that Saturday as well.
You know what I'm saying? If you work together and say, hey, big Saturday.
Sure.
Big Saturday. Let's do 2 early NFL games and then finish it off with the college football national championship. Like that. That is football, like, as a whole's dream, I feel like.
Yeah, you don't have to work against each other, work together. That'd certainly be a welcome thing. And I don't know how much of that can be done for the 2025 college football playoff, but we know in 2026 this whole thing can change again with discussions of 14 or 16, whatever it may be. And Chris, the important distinction starting in 2026 is this no longer unanimous. It is the SEC and the Big Ten wielding a lot more power. So if they say, you know what, we want to make 4 auto bids for our conferences each, and then everybody else can fill out the rest, they can theoretically do that. Now, how that's going to go down, we're going to have to wait and see. But this is the last year without the 2 power conferences yielding the most power.
Yeah, I mean, this is why, like athletic directors, like you look at Jeremiah Donati, getting to South Carolina, perfectly good job at TCU, but you talk about the future of college football, everybody's trying to get to the Big Ten or the SEC. There were a lot of benefits, even a few years ago, but when you start really looking at the landscape, those 2 conferences have really consolidated power currently, and then they're going to earn more power in the future, as you just laid out. So, yeah, it will be fascinating. I mean, a good point, Tyler, that you made in that, will we see some tweaks next year? Yes, but it's probably more along the lines of tweaks. Big picture, bigger, more sizable things that go maybe beyond tweaks to the format.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think maybe we see those, in the future.
Yeah, and again, there's a lot of time between now and then on how much that's going to change. We know it's not going to get any smaller because guess what? More teams, more games, more money, and that seems to be the way they're trending. Will it be more AQs? Will it be more open for just the rankings? We'll certainly have to see. But at the end of the day, I was entertained thoroughly by the 12-team playoff. Again, I think Ohio State was a deserving champion, and they obviously ran their way through the competition to get to that point. So I don't think changing the buys or anything like that would have changed the overall outcome. But I do think there's a more streamlined way to do this that looks a little less clunky, perhaps, than what we saw this year.
Yeah, I just think we would have gotten some more evenly matched games during the first round.
Yep.
Essentially. And, those teams, it probably plays out exactly the same potentially in terms. I think Ohio State wins it. I don't know. What I would have been fascinated if Notre Dame and Texas had squared off before the national championship. Who would have won that game? I would have been fascinated to see. I think those are 2 pretty evenly matched teams. I think you could have gotten some pretty evenly matched round 1 games, which, let's be honest, that's from a athletic standpoint, you want to crown the best team. From a TV viewing standpoint and a money gathering standpoint, you want to give entertaining games to start with. And so could it have been a little bit better seated in order to do that? I would imagine so.
Yeah, and again, we'll see what tweaks potentially get made this offseason for 2025. Bit of breaking news here. Tomorrow, South Carolina women were scheduled to play LSU at 8 o'clock here at Colonial Life Arena. We're going to have pregame coverage at 7:30 on our sister station, 98.5 WOMG. That's actually been changed that game because of the weather, and obviously you've seen the pictures and videos of what's going on down there in Louisiana that LSU is dealing with. That game's now been moved to Friday at 5 o'clock. I don't have any update in terms of which station you'll be able to listen to that on. We'll get you some updates as that becomes available. But tomorrow night's game between another top 10 showdown between South Carolina and LSU, top 5 showdown, has been moved to Friday at 5 o'clock over at Colonial Life Arena. And we'll certainly preview that game coming up tomorrow and Friday as well.
And to be clear, that's because of travel issues for LSU getting here.
Yes. So, again, they're delayed getting here, so the game's been moved today to a bit of a kind of late afternoon tip Friday at 5 o'clock over at CLA. And again, we'll let you know what station you can listen to that on once we get all that squared away. We'll come back, wrap up today's edition of the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Talk a little recruiting. A recruit in South Carolina have parted ways with each other. We'll dive into that coming up next. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour here on The Game.
All right, guys, let me tell you about our friends over at Classic Roofing. Been telling you about them for a year now. And, of course, if you want to make sure that your roof is taken care of, it's not always easy, but you do not have to do it alone. Hit up our friends at Classic Roofing, 803-590-7870, classicroofingsc.com as well. I have personal firsthand experience with our friends at Classic Roofing. Cannot recommend them enough. And one of the coolest things is if you go to that website, you can build your new roof in terms of what it's going to look like online with their GAF virtual design tool. Simply upload a picture of your home or use a sample that sort of is similar to your home. Select your desired shingle color and style, and you can instantly preview it on your home right there on the website. Again, that's classicroofingsc.com. Or if you just want to call them, set up an estimate today, 803-590-7870.
Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West, Chris along here on the game. A reminder, tonight men's basketball taking on Florida. 7 o'clock tip, pregame coverage starting at 6:30 right here on the game. And again, as we just told you in the last segment, women's basketball originally scheduled for tomorrow at 8 against LSU. Now been moved to Friday afternoon at 5. We'll let you know where to listen to that when we get that information. Some news coming out yesterday in the recruiting world. South Carolina has parted ways with a linebacker of the 2026 class out of Noonan, Georgia, Rodney Colton. Wes, I think a lot of people are intrigued by the phrase parted ways with this one. What exactly went down here?
Yeah, this was a situation where, Rodney Colton, an early commit to South Carolina, but just over time, lots of visits from him, checking out other schools, kind of going all over the country, I think, and South Carolina eventually kind of expressed that, hey, we're not really a fan of this, and so this was not your sort of typical decommitment where a prospect just decommits and that's that. This was more South Carolina sort of expressing to him that they did not feel like he was operating like someone who was committed or fully committed to the program, and was much more of a parting of ways kind of from the South Carolina end in terms of those things. Conversation happened yesterday, but this had kind of been, I would say, brewing or bubbling up for some time, despite the long-term commitment status there publicly of him.
Yeah, and I would add, Wes, you're right. We've been tracking this thing for a while. I remember in October, so I think it was later October. Remember, there were some predictions coming out on kind of the national recruiting media front for Rodney Colton to flip to Tennessee. And we kind of dug into it, and it was more just like kind of similar deal to now. Where, hey, he's still taking visits, he's still communicating with other coaches. And it's kind of interesting that even though we're in the transfer portal NIL era, some schools, and I would say South Carolina's in that category, they're trying to find out how bought-in guys are. Because you're going to bring a guy into your program, you still are trying to get, even though you have to think much more short-term, you are still trying to get a sense of how bought in is this guy. And at that time in October, it seemed, I was very much anticipating at any point the old Hayes Fawcett on 3 graphic, saying that Rodney Colton had decommitted or they parted ways or however it would be phrased. But then he visited campus again. Things seemed a little bit more solidified, but as time went on, it continued, right? Like Pete Golding from Ole Miss, the defensive coordinator, was just there. Rodney Colton posted on social media. And I think it just came to a head where, Rodney obviously, which is certainly his right, he wanted to continue going through the recruiting process. And I'm not saying that South Carolina is going to part ways with every single guy who takes another visit or has an in-home with a coach or talks to other coaches. This one, I think, it was a little bit different just in terms of the feel and how things went down. And so South Carolina made that decision. Hey, we want to focus our efforts elsewhere. Rodney Colton obviously has plenty of other options, including Ole Miss and Tennessee and a bunch of others. So it kind of came back to where it started in October, where, again, you're just trying to find guys who you feel like are going to be solid and that you're not going to have to worry quite as much about for months and months in the recruiting process. Is
there a line in terms of number of visits you would expect a committed guy to be taking elsewhere, and or is that fluid depending on the player?
I think it's very fluid.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it probably depends on maybe the behind-the-scenes conversations as well. I don't think there's any number that you kind of say, hey, if you take this many visits, that's it. Probably, and I'm not saying this is the case here, but I think probably communication plays a big part in it as well. Are you just popping up somewhere, or did you tell the coaches, hey, I got a teammate going here. I'm going to go along with them and just check it out. But you're staying in touch. I think, or maybe you've been told, hey, you gotta chill out on all these visits, and you keep taking them. I think that would be a factor as well. So it's a lot of this stuff is never really just completely a cold, hard rule. And the other thing is, if I remember correctly, I think Carolina even kind of told him in the beginning, don't commit unless you're 100% sure. And
You're exactly right.
So that was kind of they did not push for this commitment.
Yeah.
It was, hey, we know it's early. We only want you to commit. There's no pressure. Don't commit unless you are 100% committed. And so then if you sort of set it up that way and the guy's still taking visits, like, like Chris said, it's his right to take visits, but it's also South Carolina's right to say, hey, man, you just are not acting like a commitment.
Yeah. So, again, Rodney Colton parting ways with South Carolina for the 2026 class. Reminder, tomorrow we're out at Firehouse Subs on Forest Drive, 9 a.m. to noon. Come by and see us, hang out, enjoy some delicious subs, as we'll be talking plenty of what's going on with South Carolina athletics. And over the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Halftime show, myself, Terry Ford, up next on your Wednesday here in the game.
All right, guys, once again, before I get out of here, let me tell you about our friends at Classic Roofing. 803-590-7870 or classicroofingsc.com. That's where you can get more information about their services, about their business, and, of course, where you can set up a free estimate. You may be saying, what do I need to call them for? I don't have roofing issues right now. Well, if you set up that free estimate, they're going to come out, they're going to take an extensive look at your roof, and they're going to let you know all kinds of things. One being, are there any issues that need to be fixed right now? Are there some small things that need to be done at this time that can maybe extend the life of that roof? Also, speaking of the life of that roof, of course, at some point, your roof is probably going to need to be replaced. And if you go ahead and get a good idea now, hey, is that 15 years from now, 10 years from now, 5 years from now? You can go ahead and be planning for that expense